is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
Hello and welcome into another edition of Fremont. I am John Kurtz, joined by Derek Young from K-State Online, Cole Manbeck, former beat writer for the Manhattan Mercury, as we get you ready for Farmageddon today, people. Farmageddon. And look, I know Iowa State fans are known for drinking a bunch of Busch Light. I know that you guys have more class than that. I know that we are a more sophisticated fan base, and because of that, you need to get out to see our friends at Holiday Distillery, the great products that they offer. Ben Holiday Bottled and Bond Bourbon, 360 Vodka, whichever your poison of choice is. Make sure that you go out and support them. They are great folks who support our pod and are great Cat fans as well. So, Ben Holiday Bottled and Bond Bourbon, 360 Vodka. Maybe you can introduce that to a Cyclone fan this weekend while they're out at Bill Snyder Family Stadium and help sophisticate them a little bit. Class it up for the Clones with Holiday Distillery. Okay, I'm not sure how much excitement that we really had for Farmageddon on the show the other day, coming off that KU win. Do we feel like, Cole, that you're dialed in appropriately here for Iowa State? Well, you're muted.
Not locked in. It started off on mute. Dialed in for the Clones. Look, it's a big opportunity to get to 9-3. It would actually be, if you look at like Brian Freemau's FEI ratings, it'd be K-State's third best win of the year. Iowa State's 33 in the FEI rankings for his poll, and they're right around there in most of the power metrics of different analytical guys.
Who's the second best one?
DY will love this. It's Troy, 31. They are 9-2. I think they've won like 8 in a row. They're gonna probably win this weekend to get to 10-2 and advance to the Sun Belt Conference Championship game, where I believe they'll play James Madison for a chance to get to 11 wins again.
Not James Madison. They can't play for it.
Oh, so what? App State? I don't know my Sun Belt division, so I'll have to lock into that. Disappointing. I know.
At the top of the show, are you dialed in? The answer is no.
Yeah. Well, podcasting like a Chiefs wide receiver right now.
Oh, wow, that's a really low blow right now. So, don't forget, guys, that Chris Kleiman does not care for Iowa State. So I think the guys will be locked in. Senior day. Big opportunity to have a chance to get 9 regular season wins, again, 7-2 in the league, regardless of the Big 12 championship outlook, and probably being eliminated by that time of kickoff on Saturday night, and also just the chance to get to 10 wins with a bowl. So I'm sure they'll play that up, and I think they'll be locked in. Now, the atmosphere with the weather, we can talk about that, but I don't know what that'll be like, and that might create a little bit of an advantageous atmosphere for Iowa State, just because it might take some of the fans out of the game if the weather is snowy. But that sounds fun to me.
Well, I was going to say, just a little bit of snow. Are we worried about a little bit of snow for everybody? I feel like K-State fans are a pretty tough fan base.
It is slow.
Okay.
I only worry about 7 p.m. kick. You got a lot of people driving from like Western Kansas. That's already a hard kickoff time. And then it's Thanksgiving weekend. And then you add in cold. The high now is 35. They keep moving it down, and the low is 17, according to the weather app on my phone that I just checked. It does look like they've decreased the snow amount for Manhattan. It was saying 1 to 3 inches, and now it says around 1 inch of snow expected. So, hey, I love snow football, man. So I just hate if it impacts the crowd at all for the seniors on senior day. I want it to be a good atmosphere. And also, you got to remember, a lot of the students aren't back because of Thanksgiving break and the dormitory is not being opened up. I believe last year K-State opened the dorms early a day for KU because that was such a big game and clinching to go to the Big 12 championship, but I haven't heard if they're doing anything like that this year.
Wow. So Iowa State disrespect. Iowa State's not good enough to open up the dorms, huh?
Yeah, not worth it.
My worry is not necessarily for the crowd. My worry would be the weather impacting the game. The wind probably more than anything, so we'll see what it comes of that. These two teams already play a lot of tight games, and I think poor weather is probably more conducive to a tight game. And you do have Kansas State coming off the emotional high of being KU that they really basked in the glory of afterwards. So I think we're kind of seeing a mountain of factors coming into play that would suggest that this is going to be tighter than folks probably want it.
well, that leads me right into headline number one, which was just will K-State's heart be in this game, as we discussed whether or not our hearts will be in this game. But, it was interesting to hear Kleiman call out that he's not wrong, as we just addressed. Troy was the best win that Brian Freeman said K-State had before the Kansas game, but he called the KU game a signature win for the season. We know that there was a lot of celebrating after the game. Can they refocus? What was the vibe that you picked up on Tuesday, Derek?
I think I couldn't really tell, but I'm kind of skeptical. But I will say this team, after both emotional highs and losses, has been pretty good.
Where's your concern level, Cole?
Iowa State's got a good defense. Rocco Becht actually been playing decent at quarterback as a redshirt freshman. I didn't know who Rocco Becht was coming into the season, honestly. I thought they had a JUCO quarterback, or J.J. Cole would be who they'd have to go to, the true freshman. He's played pretty well. Now, they're not a good running team, so they've struggled to run the football all year. And so if the weather conditions aren't ideal, they actually rely more on the passing game. I think that helps K-State. But it's turnovers. K-State's been taking care of the football really well. You look at the last 6 games for Iowa State, they're also taking care of the football well. They only have 4 turnovers over the last 6 games, just like K-State, who has 4 turnovers over the last 6 games. And coincidentally, both teams are tied at number 11 in the country in turnover margin at +9. And so when we talk about the weather, to what DY just said, weather creates fluky things, even more flukiness with turnovers and a ball getting punched loose, or slick football if it's wet. And that would be where concerns lie, is fluky things. K-State's the better team, but does that create opportunities for Iowa State and more neutralize the field out there? So that would be. But I will say, DY, in concerns to wind, it says winds light and variable on Saturday.
And that's been back and forth. So I guess I don't necessarily going to lean on the weather forecast. We're here recording this on Wednesday, because at one point it was 3 inches of snow. Now it's 1. Temperature fluctuating, so that weather forecast could be a lot different come Saturday as well. Agree on the running game, but a few games ago, wasn't it Abu Sama that ran all over somebody though?
Yeah, it's against BYU.
It's like it runs all over them.
Yeah.
BYU,
Iowa State last year, and just diving in a little bit early to the offense defense like we did last week, Iowa State last year averaged 3.2 yards per carry, which ranked 122nd out of 131 FBS teams. They were one of the worst rushing teams in college football. They failed to reach the 80-yard mark in 6 of their 12 games last year running the football. Much of the same this year. I mean, there's 5 games they failed to reach the 100-yard mark in a game, and they're averaging 3.7 yards per carry, which is 106th in the country. So once again, struggling to run the football. Their leading running back is Eli Sanders, who has less than 500 yards rushing on the season. And then Sama is coming on, DY. He has 56 carries for a little more than 300 yards. He has 6 yards per carry, but a large number of his yardage came against BYU.
Headline number 2 for me is going to be just the difference that this game can make in how we view the season. 9-win regular season, second straight year, 9-3. It would, to be able to say, hey, this was basically the exact same season that you had last year, except I would say even a slightly better non-conference loss with the game at Mizzou as opposed to Tulane at home last year, and gives you a chance to put together the 11-10 win season in the last, not just school history, but in the last 29 years. So, almost a third of the time there. If you go back the last 3 decades, it would be a 10-win season for K-State if you can put this together. But then you lose. Not only is it leaving all that off the table, it's 8-4. It's like back to the first Kleiman regular season in 2019. Just feels like it devalues the season a little bit, and you're losing to a rival. And you look at the end of the year and say, hey, the Kansas win was great, but outside of that, the metrics say Troy was the next best win. So what really happened this year? I do think there's a pretty significant difference in how the season is viewed, whether or not you win this game.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, in a way, you could say 8-4 is only a game worse than last year, and you lost Deuce, Felix, 3 guys that are on NFL rosters from your secondary. So at the end of the day, the appropriate perspective is probably like they were fine. But 9-3, you really come back and you can say you had the same record, even though you lost all of that NFL talent. and you were able to beat both KU and Iowa State, which I think is probably pretty significant because both are going to be 500 or better. Obviously, the Jayhawks are better, and the Cyclones are a lot better than what we thought they would be, at the beginning of the season. So I think that's significant. At the end of the day, look, I don't think the scenarios are likely, but you also keep yourself in the Big 12 title hunt. Now, actually, I guess I shouldn't say that. You don't know that because all the games that matter before or matter to you in that scenario happen before you play. So you'll know by 7:00 if you're playing for a Big 12 championship or not. So that'll be interesting in itself, but a nice little finish, right? You go off on a 3-game winning streak at the end of the season and give yourself a chance to win for consecutive seasons at 10 wins.
Just like last year.
I will just say, I don't know that 100% you'll know for sure because I'm not sure that the Big 12 will know exactly for sure by the time the game kicks off at 7 based on what's happened, what the scenarios will be. Because right now they're giving people answers like, more information later when people inquire about specific situations and scenarios because they are just bozos and don't know what the hell they're doing.
Even that press release at the end, it says, and if Texas loses, hell, we don't know. That's basically what it was.
Yeah. So, it could be like the game's kicking off and like, hey, boys, we better just go take care of business because we don't know what old Yormark and company up in the old Big 12 offices in Irving are going to figure out.
You remember before the season, Yormark, it was like, Joey McGuire, I'm going to be there in Austin, so you better bring home a win. Now he's probably thinking, to avoid the confusion, I kind of want the Horns to win now.
Yeah, either that or maybe they just don't care. That's what I can't figure out. Like, do they just not care and they think that nobody else really cares because they have this championship belt that they can throw out there and like, these fan bases won't be incensed if you screw up. I don't.
They'll just blame it on all of us for interpreting it wrong.
I think I need to get an interview with Scott Draper, guys. He's the vice president of the Big 12 Office for Football, and as I'm looking at his bio, it's no wonder this is a shit show. I mean, this guy came from the American Athletic Conference. So, Draper oversees daily sports management operations for the Big 12 football, including scheduling, oversight of the conference championship game, and officiating. Man, this guy sounds like my worst enemy. Speaking of which, I saw Earl Walton officiating the Marquette, Kansas game last night, and I couldn't sleep last night because I had PTSD from seeing him on my television screen. So,
by the way, rough few days for the Jayhawks.
Well,
Earl Walton, by the way, the official who got Keontae in foul trouble against FAU.
Thank you for giving the context of that. So
KU did lose by 13.
Yeah, I watched the game. Marquette's good, man. Those guys are flying around. So anyways, Scott Draper seems like the guy behind all these rule changes and the mess. So I think we need to get him on 3-Mall, though. You didn't get a comment from Bob Berdabak, did you, John?
Thanks for calling that out by name. No, I did not. I did not.
Sorry. Well, Bob Berta didn't reply to comment. Head of Big 12 Communications. People need to know that there's no accountability or transparency in the Big 12 office, and people need to know that 3-Mall will no longer be allowed at football Big 12 media days for the way that we're talking about the Big 12 office. So, yeah. Anyways.
I think they knew that there was zero accountability on this front without that tidbit, but now they definitely know.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think I basically said, look, I emailed the Big 12, and I was not the only guy, I mean, one of the Topeka TV reporters I saw asked the same thing about the specific line, the if not line, and they just weren't going to respond to it, which, you definitely know you have things figured out if you're just going to ignore all of that. Anyway, Cole, wrote your thoughts on how differently the season will be viewed, 9-3 versus 8-4.
Yeah, that's my fault. I veered us way off topic there. Yeah, I think it is a significant thing. I think going to getting an opportunity to win 10 games is significant. And you remember, like, in the Chris Kleiman's first couple of years, 2 or 3 years, and not that 8 wins is a bad thing, but we were like, last year, can he get over the ceiling? Can he get to 9? Can he get to 10 wins? And if he can now back that up back-to-back years with 9 to 10 wins, that's a significant thing to me. And so, yeah, and 7-2 in the league. I looked it up last night, guys. I had it down in my notes. But if K-State were to win this game, they would be 15-4 in Big 12 games since the start of last year. That would be the best winning percentage of any team in this league over the 2-year stretch. Texas would be 14-4, so same loss record, assuming they win out. But K-State with that one extra win, higher winning percentage. So, you could say that you've been the most consistent program in the Big 12 the last 2 years, consistently successful, even if you aren't in the Big 12 championship. So I think it's meaningful. Keep the momentum going. You had a great recruiting class last year. Keep the recruiting momentum going as well into the off season here and to bowl prep. And so, yeah. And then you start looking at some of the young guys in this program coming back the next year with Avery Johnson and some of the young talent, dynamic talent at wide receiver. It's exciting. And so just to continue to build that momentum, I think winning 9-10 games is significant compared to 8-4. You really lose a lot of steam. And then if you lose that bowl game, you're 8-5, it does not look like a good year at all.
Yeah, I mean, I hesitate to associate too much significance to the bowl game, but point taken for sure. Look, we told you earlier, if you're going to be out at Bill Snyder Family Stadium for the game this Saturday, help culture our Cyclone fan friends with your holiday distillery booze, but also you can help culture them by wearing your home field gear. Home Field's Black Friday sale is going right now through November 26th, 20% off the entire site with the code Black Friday. So forget Fremont23 for now. Just Black Friday, you're going to get even bigger discount. And this discount goes for anybody. It doesn't have to just be your first time. Black Friday, the code for 20% off at Home Field. If you want to be like Derek and wear a Youngstown State Penguins shirt, you can certainly do that. That is the choice that you can make on homefieldapparel.com.
There's a note to my last name. I had a pretty big week too, right? With all the stress that I had given to KU, and came out on top.
Youngstown State. Yes. Okay. I did not. I thought maybe that was going to be about your Ohio roots and not necessarily your last name. But
Jim Tressel did coach there. Yep, he did. So did Eric Wolford, former Wildcat once upon a time. Now the offensive line coach at Alabama.
Can I chime in, guys, real quick? Scott Draper received his master's degree from Madonna University.
Madonna.
There you go.
Never heard of it.
Yeah. Does not seem legit. Was that one of those online universities? Did they do any sort of mathematical formulas? I'm going to check into their Excel spreadsheets and how they do their work there at Madonna University and see if it's real. Maybe we can get him.
Madonna seems pretty successful. I don't know. It seems like a good move to me. Biggest discount that Home Field offers all year. Don't miss out. Promo code Black Friday for 20% off at homefieldapparel.com. Get into all the K-State gear they have. Over 40 different options for you there, and 100 plus other teams that you can check out as well. We are back in just a moment.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network.
Senior Day. It is Senior Day at Bill Snyder Family Stadium, and I think there's still a little bit of intrigue surrounding that. I saw Derek point out that 25 are going to be honored, but there are only 23 seniors on the roster, and that there will potentially be seniors who are not getting introduced either. Chris Kleiman said at the press conference on Tuesday, no conversations with potential super seniors until next week, so they are keeping all of that off the table, as they probably should until the regular season is done. But how intrigued will you be, Derek, by who gets actually introduced at Senior Day on Saturday?
Very, just because it could be, a sneak peek into which seniors are going to come back for a super senior year, and just what juniors are not going to stick around as well, because that would be the suggestion, since you have more guys walking than seniors on the team. Now, obviously, one of those has probably been Sinnott, I would imagine. He's been in the program for 4 years because he did redshirt. So he's already graduated, I'm sure, and he's already accepted an invitation to the Reese's Senior Bowl. Now, I will pivot this and say, in terms of what super seniors can come back, the results could be that you can have a pretty solid defense. Now, I don't think Khalid Duke's coming back, but say Brendan Mott comes back. Say Uso comes back. Austin Moore, Keenan Garber, even Kobe Savage with Marquis Siegel, who's only a junior technically. You're talking about a lot of returning standouts on the defensive side of the ball that have the ability to return. So in terms of guys coming back for maybe a super senior like you saw this year with Phil Brooks, the offensive line was really offense heavy this year. I think next year the potential is that you could build a pretty stout defense by doing it that way.
Well, of course, one of the names that we'll be keeping an eye on would be Will Howard, right? Do we have any idea whether or not Will is going to be introduced?
I'd expect to. He's a senior already. Never redshirted, so it's his 4th year. But I tend to think that this will be his swan song at Bill Snyder Family Stadium.
DY, who would you say, and John, I'll leave this open-ended for you, out of all the guys that could come back for a super senior season or just come back in general? Obviously, we know Cooper Beebe, Ben Sennett are not coming back in all likelihood, but who else, like out of guys that could come back, who would you prioritize or like to see back the most?
I think the guys that I kind of mentioned, like Uso, Mott, Moore, Garber, and
so is it the name that jumped out to me just because of the position that he plays was Uso, because what is Javon Banks? So Javon Banks, but they're not even really using him at tackle, are they?
Just as a rush tackle, right? Like he comes in pass rush situations a lot.
Yeah, he's a junior.
I think he's got 2 years.
I like Elalio, but I would just feel better about defensive tackle, and that's such a hard position to recruit, especially if you're talking about like trying to find somebody in the portal or something. That feels like that would be a pretty important one to get short up with a player that is pretty productive.
I would rank it like I would have top 2, and it would be Uso and it'd be Kobe Savage at safety. So those would be my priorities. Love to have Austin Moore and Keenan Garber back for sure as well. But I do think they have some talent in the linebacker room, and also at corner. Now I would say also that with the injuries at linebacker, Austin Moore would take some pressure off the recovery of Asa Newsome and Jay Clifton as well, just having a veteran guy back.
That's true. Any feel for who might be most likely out of that group?
Not really. I haven't gotten a good vibe on that. We mentioned a lot of defensive players. The offensive players besides Will and Cooper that could also return are Trayshawn Ward, Jaden Jackson, Taylor Portier.
Oh, yeah, I would say on the offensive side, I'd love to have Trayshawn Ward back, and just keep that 2-headed monster with DJ Giddens and him.
I mean, that'd be phenomenal. Yeah, I forgot about Trayshawn Ward in that equation. I would love that. I have gotten questions, Derek, this week about Will Howard. I know we've addressed this a little bit before, but are we still in the same spot thinking that I know you said swan song at Bill Snyder Family Stadium, still thinking that may be the most likely scenario here?
Yeah, I do. I don't know what he is going to do, and no one's outright told me, but, talking to people, having conversations about it, I think it would be a little bit of a surprise to me if he was bad. And I think, look at it from Will's eyes too, through his lens, and he knows that Avery Johnson is right over that shoulder. And I think him looking over that shoulder a little bit this year, anytime that he went through some struggles, I don't know that he would necessarily sign up for that again either.
Yeah, that's cool.
No, I think Will, in all likelihood, would probably check out the NFL, see what his possibilities are there, and then potentially, if it's not the NFL, maybe look around and move on. I don't think the 2-quarterback system with Avery and him has been easy on either of those two guys. And Will walking probably on senior day, that's a significant thing. I think you alluded to it earlier, though, DY, just because guys do walk doesn't mean they don't come back. I think Cade Warner walked a couple different, twice. So guys do walk on senior day and then choose to ultimately come back. And we know K-State last year had several guys that walked. I think KT Leviston, probably Christian Duffy.
All those offensive linemen. Yeah. Coming back to it, it's for Will Howard, it's probably NFL. And if not, you might want a certain starting spot.
Yeah.
I mean, the NFL thing with Will Howard, I was thinking about it in the context of Skylar Thompson's been able to latch on with a spot in the NFL here for a little while. And would we say Will Howard's been a better college quarterback than Skylar Thompson?
Yeah, I just feel like from a performance standpoint, he probably was sharper last year. So I don't know if that plays into it.
Well, I think it's in totality. Yeah, he has a bigger body of work of being really sharp from last year, for sure. Cole, Skylar Thompson, or Will Howard? Who would you take there?
It's a good question. without looking at the numbers, I think I would lean toward Will. If we're looking at the last couple of years of each career, and
Will Howard won a Big 12, so I think you ultimately pick him. But if you're talking about like NFL stuff, it's probably a lot tighter.
Skyler's a little more like natural athleticism, mobility, probably, even though Will definitely can move and can run the ball. Anyway, it's just an interesting angle on that, because I think some people immediately would dismiss it like, oh, that doesn't really look like an NFL quarterback. But yeah, he might have a shot to latch on someone. Would be wishing the best.
To your point, I mean, Skylar Thompson's on an NFL roster for the second consecutive season. So, it's I don't know. Skylar, when fully healthy, we didn't get to see Skylar. He was always battling nagging injuries. Even that senior year, he came back with the knee injury and played through that, but he wasn't mobile because of it. So he was kind of a standing duck in the pocket. But yeah.
Do have to give everybody a reminder here. I forgot to do it earlier this week. On our Patreon page, patreon.com/3maw. If you want extra content, you can get a completely unhinged post-game pod from after the KU game on Saturday, as we were all reacting instantly to a game that I think, I can certainly speak for myself, I thought was lost, that was pulled out of the fire. There's been a lot of basketball talk. If you're jonesing for K-State Hoops talk, we've had a lot of Patreon content lately about that. So you can access all that for just $5 a month. Patreon.com/3maw. Great way to support the show here and get some bonus content for yourself. So we appreciate everybody who's out there. I know Cole was taking a bunch of videos too. He's typically giving you instant reaction. So there's all sorts of content on that Patreon page.
Yeah, do a lot of shoot, guys. I think we had like 4 podcasts on there last week. DY and I went live after the Providence game Friday night too, and did like a 40-minute pod. Did a little 15-minute Miami preview pod on Sunday morning. So yeah, lots of content was out there last week, and this week a little slower, but pick back up here very soon.
Well, I bet it will pick back up, and I also bet that if you want to bet, you should do it at DraftKings. There's so much to be thankful for: family, friends, food, and NFL football all week long. DraftKings Sportsbook is keeping your Thanksgiving week full of action. New customers can bet just $5 on the NFL action to score $150 instantly in bonus bets. No matter your appetite, there's something for you. Money lines, parlays, props, live bets, and so much more. You name it, they've got it. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code KCSN. New customers can bet $5 on the NFL action Thanksgiving Day to score $150 instantly in bonus bets. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, with code KCSN. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In West Virginia, visit 1-800-GAMBLER.net. Please play responsibly. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, must be 21 or older in most eligible states, but age varies by jurisdiction. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details and state-specific responsible gambling resources. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. Terms at sportsbook.draftkings.com/football terms. Stuck the landing on that one, guys. I feel like that was better. I'm getting better as we go with the DraftKings returns here. Yeah. Iowa State time, Cole. Should we bet on the Clones being a decent to good team? That is my question to you, because start looking at their resume. I'm like, well, they beat Oklahoma State, but their other wins are Baylor, Cincy, BYU, TCU, and Northern Iowa.
Now was Oklahoma State looked like a good.
Yeah, I got blasted by Oklahoma. I guess you could say they hung tough with Texas and Kansas. I mean, Kansas was up 21-3 in Ames. So I don't know. I've just always kind of been like, Iowa State to me feels very West Virginia-y. Fair comparison there. They're kind of in that caliber of team.
Yeah, I think that's right. You just mentioned it. Wins over 5-6 BYU, 5-6 TCU, 3-8 Baylor, 3-8 Cincinnati, and then obviously the win against Oklahoma State before Oklahoma State woke up on the season. So yeah, and I think they're a pretty average football team, solid defense, but I don't know. It's a weird season for Iowa State because they started the non-con 1-2, and you thought they were really going to just tank. They went 4-8 last year, 1-8 in Big 12 play, and then they bounced back in league play, and now they're sitting at 5-3 in the Big 12 with a chance to get to 6 Big 12 wins, which is in large part due to a very favorable schedule that fell their way. But you look at Matt Campbell now, guys, over his last 29 games going into Saturday's game, he's 12-17 overall. They lost 4 of their last 6 at the end of 2021 to finish 7-6, go 4-8 last year, and sit 6-5 right now as we sit to date. So, yeah, I mean, John, it's an Iowa State team that you look across the board, they're pretty average overall. Let's start with the offense. They're 55th in yards per play at 5.6. They average 2.25 points per drive. That ranks 58th in the country. They're 33rd in Brian Freemau's FEI offensive ratings. 3.7 yards per rush. You heard me mention that earlier. I was a little bit off on where that stands nationally. It's 93rd nationally, but still not good by any means. And Eli Sanders, their leading rusher, at 477 yards on the season. DY mentioned earlier, freshman running back Abu Sama, who has come on late, had a really good game against BYU. 117 rushing yards per game, rank 105th nationally. I mentioned earlier they couldn't run the ball at all last year either. 51st in pass efficiency offense, 12th in sack percentage allowed at 3.4%. So really good at avoiding sacks. Rocco Becht only been sacked 11 times. 12th in the country at a 3.4% sack rate, 7.7 yards per pass. That ranks 47th in the country. And then you look at Rocco Becht. He's had a nice year for a redshirt freshman. 63% completion percentage, 7.7 yards per pass, over 2,400 yards passing on 317 attempts, 17 TDs, 8 interceptions. He threw for 323 yards and completed 75% of his passes against Texas last week, while averaging a really impressive 10 yards per pass. And then they got a couple of really good receivers. 6'4" junior receiver who transferred from Eastern Kentucky, Jaden Higgins, 714 yards receiving on 42 receptions, averaging 17 yards per catch this year. He had 104 yards against Texas last week. And Jalen Noel, we know, obviously, K-State recruited him from Kansas City, 5'10", junior receiver who's second on the team with 581 yards on 57 receptions. He's got 155 career grabs for more than 1,400 yards. I mentioned the turnovers earlier, too. They've been taking care of the football, only 4 turnovers the last 6 games, and they're tied with K-State at number 11 in the country in turnover margin. So it's if the weather is, murky, if it's not great weather, I don't know how Iowa State's going to move the football if it impacts the passing game, because I don't think they can line up and just run it at you. I remember that I watched them play KU in Ames, and Iowa State couldn't run the ball really at all on KU for the majority of that game. They really struggled. Their offensive line got beat up by that KU front 7. And so I just have a hard time seeing Iowa State being able to run the ball, even though K-State has struggled a bit against the run with the linebacker situation over the last several weeks.
I agree about Iowa State's vulnerability in that area, but Kansas State's run defense might be more vulnerable than what Iowa State's running game is, because you don't have Daniel Green, you don't have Jake Clifton, and you might not have Uso Seumalo as well. So
yeah,
Kansas State's run defense could be beleaguered just by the condition that they are in the middle of their defense.
The concern is, this defense now on the season allowing 4.4 yards per rush. That ranks 81st in the country, but the numbers are better than what they really are, because the 3 games in the non-con, K-State held their opponents to around 1.5 yards per carry. So really over Big 12 play, K-State is allowing more than 5 yards per rush, which is not a good number.
Although the success rate, I think, is a little bit better in that.
Yeah.
Well, you just jump in here and say that I think the Kleiman update on Uso was basically questionable. Fair way to sum it up.
Yeah, essentially. Now, the stuff that I had heard was a little bit more negative than that, but they kept him on the depth chart. Kleiman says he has a shot to play, so hopefully that's more correct than what I've heard.
It's better news, though, than what it looked like. I mean, when he leaves the game and comes out not in uniform and in a boot, you'd think worst case scenario. And it reminded me of the TCU game in the Big 12 championship last year. He got rolled up on in overtime or late in that game. And I remember he appeared in Bramlage Coliseum and he had crutches and had his leg in a big cast. And then he played in the bowl game, a few weeks later. So hopefully Uso is ready to go. Looking at the Iowa State defense, guys, this is where their strength is. Obviously the 3-3-5 defense, 32nd nationally, allowing 5 yards per play, 1.74 points per drive. That ranks 33rd nationally as well. 31st in Brian Freemau's defensive FEI ratings, 3.8 yards per rush allowed. So this is where you get a little concerned. They ranked 36 in the country in yards per carry allowed. And then they last year allowed 3.1 yards per rush, which ranked 5th in the country and best in the Big 12. They've been good against the run year in and year out. And if you look at run defenses, K-State's gone against. Texas is 7th in the country at 2.9 yards per rush allowed. Troy is 11th at 3.1. Iowa State will be the 3rd best rush defense that K-State has gone up against. 126 rushing yards per game allowed, ranking 33rd in the country. I mentioned earlier, the KU game. Well, they also held KU's rushing attack, which we know is really good, to just 74 yards on 35 carries and averaging 2.1 yards per rush. At the same time, they also gave up 287 yards passing on just 23 attempts in that game, an average of 12.5 yards per pass, which is a really bad number. 4.6% sack rate, that ranks 108th nationally. J.R. Singleton leads them in sacks at 3.5, so they're not impressive at getting after the quarterback. They're 16th nationally in pass efficiency defense. That's going to be the best pass efficiency defense that K-State will have played this season. 6.5 yards per pass attempt allowed, ranks 20th. And some of their better defensive players are guys K-State recruited hard. And junior safety Bew Freiler, I might have mispronounced his name. Bo. I'm sorry. Bo. Yeah.
It's like when I get to the 1-800 numbers in the DraftKings read, and I say like 1,800. Like, shit. Okay.
Yeah, Bo. So he leads the team with 80 tackles, also has 3 interceptions. Miles Purchase, a junior corner that K-State recruited as well, leads the team with 8 passes defended. And then TJ Tampa, preseason first team All Big 12 pick in the secondary, 7 passes defended, 40 tackles, 2 interceptions. Good player, as is Jeremiah Cooper, their safety. So, yeah, will K-State be able to line up and run the ball against Iowa State? K-State's 24th nationally, 4.9 yards per carry, 196 rushing yards per game, ranks 15th in the country. Can they line up and run it against Iowa State? We'll see.
How would this defense compare to like the last couple years Iowa State defense? I think same caliber.
What do you think, DY?
Yeah, this is same old Iowa State to me. You got a really good defense, an okay quarterback, just not as good of a running game, but it seems to be on the upswing.
I think what I would say, John, is not the one thing they're missing is a pass rush this year, and what McDonald last year now being gone, 1st round pick. I think that's an area, and then also they lost one of their stud linebackers as well, so they're not quite at the same level as they were last year. I was trying to find their defensive FEI ratings of Brian Freeman last year, guys, was number 7 in the country as a defense. This year, they're 33rd. So they have taken a step back. They're not at the same level, but they're still solid.
That's what I thought. I was like, it seems crazy because they were 4-8 last year, but I was like, I feel like last year the defense was more dominant and they had no offense. So that's the difference this year. A little better offense, a little worse defense. But now it is everybody's favorite time. It is time for quick hitters here on the preview pod. We're going to start with this. Who will K-State's leading receiver be next year? And I'm giving you 2 options here. You got Jace Brown or the field. Jace Brown or the field. Who will be K-State's leading receiver next year? Phillip Brooks, Ben Sinnott, not going to be there. DJ Giddens is 3rd on the team. I mean, he's a running back. I guess if you wanted to think that he would be the leading receiver, you could do that. But that'd be my question for you boys.
I would, that's a good question because Jace Brown has that big play capability, averaging 18.6 yards per catch. I'll probably lean toward the field. Though I think Keegan Johnson could have a big bounce back year next year if he can stay healthy. I know that's the big if, but I also think Garrett Oakley could be just have a mammoth season at tight end as well for this team. I'll ultimately take the field because I just think I think it might be a little deeper at wide receiver. Guys, I mean, I know they're losing Phillip Brooks, but I think Trey Spivey will be more ingrained into the offense. Wouldn't be surprised if they go out and get maybe one transfer as well. So I'll take the field.
I think the field is the correct answer. Jace Brown having to splash now because he's coming on the scene quicker. You wonder, does his size at any point come into play as well? I think you have enough weapons and options there, especially with Keegan Johnson hopefully becoming what he was supposed to become, alongside Garrett Oakley, maybe some others. I think the field's the correct answer.
I was going to make that point on Keegan Johnson. Like, it's not like he's been lighting the world on fire necessarily, but he has been playing more and better. I guess it was only 2 for 17 at KU, but he had the touchdown. Got a couple touchdowns in the last 3 weeks, around 150 yards receiving the last 3 weeks. So, yeah, hopefully that trend continues. I'm with you. I think the field probably is the right answer, but if there's a guy that you would single, if I said, hey, you had to give me a name right now, I think Jace Brown would probably be the guy.
I would go Keegan. I'm back in the bandwagon.
I would go Jace just because he's proven he can stay on the field thus far. But to your point on Keegan, he's got 12 receptions over his last 3 games. He had 8 on the season going into this. So the fact that he's at least staying on the field and he's being an integral part of the offense is important.
Yeah, for sure. Who do you trust more? The Chiefs wide receiver core to catch a pass that hits them in the hands, or the Big 12 to put together coherent conference championship tiebreakers?
The Chiefs. They've released. You at least got guys that have won Super Bowls. The Big 12's got a bunch of dudes that are woefully incompetent.
Yeah, I'd probably take the Chiefs. They only have dropped 26 passes on the year to lead the NFL. So, I mean, at least they get it right. 75% of the time they catch the ball. So far, the evidence we have is the Big 12 can't figure anything out with the tiebreakers, so they're hitting a 0% accuracy right now for me. So I'll say the Chiefs wide receivers have a slight more bit of trust.
Boy, I don't know about that, man. I mean, I don't trust either of them. That's the point of the question. But what are you seeing from the Chiefs receivers that makes you trust them in any way, shape, or form? I mean, that's 2 games that they've just, the Detroit game and the game the other night, they against the Eagles, they've just single-handedly lost with some flat-out awful drops. I mean, I don't...
The Marquez Valdez-Scantling one was so gross.
It was.
But as a Packers fan, I know how that one feels. He did that all the time in Green Bay.
Yeah, I'm sure. Which upset is more likely to happen? I think we'd like to see both of these happen. Which is more likely to happen, TCU over Oklahoma or Texas Tech over Texas? Both of those games being played at the favorites' home field.
And on Black Friday. Both games are Black Friday games as well. I'm going to say TCU just because they've had a rough season, but the talent is pretty much there. It's just for some reason the pieces haven't fit together this year and makes you question, was it a first year kind of luck there for Sonny Dykes because the rest of his coaching career is like, who is he? But I'll say TCU, and that's more of an indictment on Oklahoma being the most vulnerable almost every week.
Slight lean here to TCU, and so TCU's, I don't know if the players care that much about getting to a bowl, but it's not a great look to make the college football playoff and then go 5-7 in the ensuing year and not make a bowl game for Sonny Dykes. So they're fighting to get to a bowl here. And then the other aspect is, and I know Brent Venables has made it sound like he's fine, but if Dylan Gabriel doesn't play, you got a freshman quarterback in Jackson Arnold, a true freshman. We know he's super talented, was a high-level recruit, but that OU offense just wanted to hand the ball off when he was in the game last week against BYU.
They didn't act like they trusted him at all, which is a little puzzling to me to not give him a chance. I don't know, because there's a part of me when that first happened, I was like, this might be the best thing to happen to OU because I don't really think much of Dylan Gabriel.
Yeah. So we'll see. It sounds like Gabriel could play. Sound like another head injury though, and he's had several of those. It seems like it in his college football career. That's why I'll take TCU. But I do think, guys, I'm excited kind of to watch that Black Friday night game against Texas Tech in Texas. I think Texas Tech, that's going to mean a lot to Joey McGuire, and I know they're already 6-5. They're going to a bowl, but I think Taj Brooks, they could script some sort of game plan to try to control the clock and figure something out, even though it's so hard to run against that Texas front, which, by the way, Iowa State had 9 yards rushing last week against Texas.
Yeah. That's my thing, too. Like, as much as I think Texas Tech gets up for that game and they're the kind of the thorn for Texas in terms of teams rising up and pulling upsets in that matchup. But on paper, that's a terrible matchup because Texas can take away the running game. And if you really make Texas Tech throw, that's kind of been their bugaboo this year because then they'll just give it to you. So I worry about that. And look, we know Oklahoma under Brent Venables is the team most likely to fall flat on their face.
Yes, Texas, I will give them credit. They have earned a lot of credibility for me this year with taking care of business in games like last week in Ames. I will just make this point. I feel like as far as the opponent goes, Texas Tech is probably more steady than TCU. Like TCU has had these wild swings, and so I can understand making the case like, hey, maybe you get a gem of a game out of TCU. Texas Tech just feels like steady, kind of plodding along. They're figuring some things out with Barron Morton. Like they're doing all right, but then same token, they beat UCF by 1 last week at home. So
the problem with them is they need to run the ball to be good,
and that's going to be real hard. Yeah,
it's going to be like literally every game that they played well, it's because they've been able to run the ball.
What percent chance would you guys put on one of those three teams, Oklahoma State, OU, or Texas, losing? On one of them losing? We know that only one losing won't help K-State.
Just one?
Yeah, just one.
To be honest, just one. I think it's 50 or maybe even a little bit higher. I think the group's fault.
So the opponents there, it's BYU for Oklahoma State. They're all at home, right?
They're all favored by they're all favored by 14 or more.
Well, I've got TCU at plus 10.
Oh, are they?
Yeah, and then 12 and a half for Tech and Texas.
All right. Well, okay, so let's change it. Double digits.
Okay. I'd say more like 33%. I'd give it like a 1-3 shot that one of those three teams is losing.
I already gave mine, Cole.
Yeah, Cole, we're waiting on you.
Hey, sometimes John doesn't answer the questions that he asks. All right? Back off. I'll say 40%.
Okay. Cole's going to split the difference. Yep. Very brave. Very brave of Cole.
Now, who's the most likely to win?
Well, we just did that, didn't we? TCU?
No, which favorite?
Oh, which favorite?
I think it's Oklahoma State.
I'll say Texas.
Texas and Oklahoma State are neck and neck for me. I'll say Texas. I'll say Texas. I don't trust Oklahoma State quite that much. Over under 1.5 Big 12 teams will replace their head coach this offseason. So that could be either a coach leaving, somebody gets fired. I think watch out for Dana Holgorsen and Dave Aranda. As far as guys who could get fired, we've seen Leipold, Kleiman, Gundy, and Campbell all mentioned for job openings out there so far. So if I put the over under at 1.5 Big 12 teams replacing their head coach this offseason, you going over?
I'll say excuse me. I'll say over, and I don't necessarily have the specifics on who it will be, but you have that many teams anymore in this era of college athletics with the way teams change coaches and the way coaches change jobs. It only being one would be a shock.
Yeah, I'll say over as well. I think it actually could be close to, maybe even 3. There could also be a guy like a Neil Brown who tries to do the Dana Holgorsen, right? And, capitalize on his 8-4 season, try to get a job elsewhere and get a fresh start, considering where he was at going into the season on the hot seat.
Satterfield too. Yeah,
I forgot about Scott Satterfield. What a disaster. Yeah.
That looks like a disastrous hire, but Cincinnati doesn't strike me as that's why I didn't bring him up, because since he doesn't strike me as a place to just bail on a guy after 1 year.
No, I don't think that they would. I'm a little hesitant on thinking Baylor will bail on Dave Aranda. I think they give him another year, but these things are, you don't know. And now that you've already transitioned to the Big 12, I could see Houston get, moving on from Dana, though.
That feels like the most likely guy to be a mover for me. It feels like they're kind of tapped out on him. They're not finishing the year really strong. I guess maybe I should have put the over under at 2.5. I can tell you how I got to this number. It was originally going to be how many head coaches get fired in the Big 12, and I was thinking putting the over under at 1.5, but I was like, I feel like that's a pretty easy under. So then I was like, well, let's talk about guys changing.
Hockey at BYU, they've been.
Yeah, I know there's judging the temp of BYU fans that I interact with the YouTube show. They're not.
They weren't a strong year in a while.
Yeah, they're not. Well, I think it's been 2 back-to-back pretty rough years, and then it was Zach Wilson before that, right? They had a nice year.
Yeah, they still probably underachieved with him, but yeah.
Okay, finally, the streak is now 15 years old. So, I was thinking about this. I was like, you're 15. It's about the time that I got my first job. It's time that this 15-year-old starts producing around here. So what part-time job? What should the first part-time job be for the streak now that it's turned 15, Cole? What do you think? Puts to work at a grocery store, I'm sure it can get the restricted license now, so it can drive to and from work and school. You don't have to be in the car anymore. So upgraded from that learner's permit with the win this year.
Kurtz.
John kicked it to me, but I'm gonna let DY go first because no, I don't. I thought you come up with great questions. I don't like this one.
I'll say what mine are. What mine were. I sold phones for Sprint when it was still a company and not RIP dead. So you could sell some phones. What else did I do? Oh,
that's very Kansas City of you.
Yeah, well, it was even in Ohio when I did it. Wash dishes for a restaurant. Wash dishes. Huh?
I started umpiring Little League baseball games and throwing coaches out of games at the age of 12. So, that was making $10 an hour or $10 a game,
Let me bail some hay. We're in Kansas, right?
Look at you worker. Yeah, I think you should do the street should do what I did at that age at 15 and work in a thrift store, grocery store in Rossville, Kansas called Wieners.
Did you get your first? Some people get their first boyfriend or girlfriend at the age of 15, right? Yeah, do that.
I was a loser. But fun working at Wieners and having a shirt that said Wieners on it all the time. Not a sponsor, could be. Maybe Wieners. Shout out to my hometown grocery.
Yeah, go use your old connections there. Let's get
right on Highway 24.
Cole's offensive defensive breakdown brought to you by Wieners.
Wiener. Something tells me we might only get about $50 from that sponsorship, but hey.
Well, shout out to the Hy-Vee at 135th and Antioch, man. I worked in the Hy-Vee kitchen for like 7 years in high school and college.
Liberty Gathering Place in West Liberty, Ohio. Still employs my brother, so on a sponsored cookie.
Here we go, man.
Set them all up. Let's get all the old grocery stores. Nick says he worked at Braum's. That actually sounds like a better job than any of us. That'd be pretty sweet. Get some of that ice cream.
Probably ate a bunch of ice cream.
All right, we have a little bit of drama here with the lead pipe block of the week, and it's because I have been completely sucking. That's really it. I am 0 for the last 3. Which has dropped me from 5-2 to 5-5. Now the good news is Cole also lost last week, so he is still 1 game back of me. But Cole has a chance to tie in the final week here. Cole missed on Houston last week. I just barely made it. Texas Tech. Damn it! It was 2.5. You couldn't give me an extra field goal in there. You win the game by 1. And DY hit with Florida, even though they couldn't quite seal the deal over Mizzou. So DY's 3-7. He's 2 games back. At least DY's turning into a respectable finish here.
That's a winning streak. First winning streak.
Yeah. So I've been getting screwed on the Big 12. I've been off on the Big 12 the last couple of weeks. So I wanted to pick West Virginia minus 8.5 at Baylor because I just think Baylor is just cashed it in. But I'm staying away from that because the Big 12 has led me astray here recently. So I'm going to go with Clemson minus 7 at South Carolina. I know it's a rivalry game, but Clemson, DYC, you cringe. Clemson's won 3. They beat Notre Dame, Georgia Tech, and North Carolina 3 straight weeks, man. They're really rounding into form, and they're going to be in revenge mode from last year. So they've got all the motivation in the world for this game. I like Clemson to win that game with ease over their in-state rivals.
I am going Big 12. I thought about Rutgers +1 against Maryland just because that's a kind of a stinky line with the way Maryland's played this year, and Rutgers is only a 1-point dog. And Maryland's coming off, kind of having Michigan on the ropes there for a bit. So I thought that would maybe be a letdown spot for the Terps. Ultimately, I chose to go UCF, minus 13.5 against Houston. Look, I think Houston, they had Oklahoma State down. They were probably feeling really good about themselves as well. Kind of empty the tank there to maybe upset the Cowboys. Didn't come through. Now you got a UCF team that I think is probably playing some of the best football they've played this year. So I like the Knights, minus 13.5.
Yeah. I'll take TCU +10 against loser boy Brent Venables.
I like that.
Did you come up with that just now as you had your head down, furiously looking through?
darn YouTube showing that I'm scrolling all the games, really making our listeners, really feel confident in the picks as they're looking at me like, Cole clearly did not research this week, and he's scrolling through. And plus, I also thought the line on TCU was like 14 earlier, so really showed my research there, but I think TCU will give them a bit of a fight, and that's who I'll take. I mean, I like that game going into the weekend.
Did you like my UCF pick?
What? So I didn't listen to you because I was trying to figure out my game. UCF.
UCF like -13, I think, over Houston.
Yeah. I think that's good.
I think Oklahoma State minus some Houston's battleship.
Yeah, and I think UCF cares about bowl eligibility. They want to get that 6th win. I think they'll come out motivated. And Houston's quit.
Yeah, and I said UCF maybe play their best football of the year. Their last 4 games, I mean, you blasted Oklahoma State, you took Texas Tech to the wire, you beat Cincinnati. I mean, it's a team starting to come into form a little.
Yeah. The other reason I like TCU is 11 a.m. kick, Black Friday, morning game. Norman, think it's going to be a little flat. I think the Horned Frogs will give one heck of a fight.
I do. I think that's a one-possession game.
You know what, as I think about it? I think Oklahoma loses the game. Is Chandler Morris going to play?
We already went over this, but they're the most likely team.
Yeah.
You mean Dylan Gabriel, right?
No, I mean for TCU. Is like Chandler Morris, any chance that he comes back and plays in this game instead of Hoover?
I don't know. Are they better with Chandler Morris?
Chandler Morris played. Chandler Morris had 4 passes against Baylor last week. I don't know. Gives me comfort that he's there. So
Chandler Morris, is Chandler Morris better than Josh Hoover?
Oh, Josh Hoover went 24 of 29 for 412 yards last week against Baylor. Wow.
He's thrown for 400 yards like 3 times.
Yeah, he's up and down. All right. Well, man, TCU is winning. So
I think they're the most likely team to win.
That's happening. And then K-State fans are going to start to get a little hope as the day goes on. And then Texas gets Texas Tech. So
yeah, but then you'll still have hope with Oklahoma State, BYU, even if Texas wins.
Yeah, Cougs rise up, fighting for bowl eligibility.
Yeah, maybe you could show some damn respect for the Cougars. Okay, you've been trashing them on this pod all year long as I tried to, hold up the glory of their name, and instead you've just been crapping on them at every turn. So now that we need them, can you say something nice about BYU, please?
The only thing I'll say is I don't know which Cougars are better, Houston or BYU.
I can say something nice about BYU because my sign guy and many of your sign guys, Josh War, is a BYU fan who has made some of the most fantastic signs. He's got my 3 Maw and Wildcat script sign, and I've got 6 more in the basement. So, I feel bad for Josh that I talked poorly about BYU this year. I think BYU
nice about their team. I mean, look, they rushed for 200 yards on Oklahoma last week.
They rushed for 200 yards. Yeah.
Yeah, they press on back.
That's pick 6. They win the game.
They rushed for 200 yards and they ran the ball 3 straight plays to get to the 1 yard line and then dropped back and threw it RPO and threw a pick 6. So that was
hey, positive. Let's manifest this, okay?
All right,
manifest. No negative energy.
Yeah. Well, but I will say TCU is beating Oklahoma outright. In fact, I don't even want the 10, Sean. If I get the money line, do I get 2 wins there on the bet on our
sure. Yes, I will give you 2 wins. Thank you. I will give you 2 wins.
You're giving them a chance to beat you now.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Okay, well, I was debating here. I'm like, look, I know K-State and Iowa State always seem to play really close games. It would seem to be probably a lower scoring game based on, weather and who the teams are and all that. But K-State has been so good at home, and particularly like offensively, they've been so dynamic at home. They're winning games by an average of 33 points per game at home. I'm going to take K-State actually to cover. I'll take the Wildcats 31-20.
Yeah, yet the weather, the way these teams like to play each other, the way these coaches typically devolve when they play each other, these 2 teams, the way they play each other, I think there's a mountain of factors that lead this to be a low possession, kind of drag them out boxing match, so to speak, between these 2 teams, and the weather's not going to help K-State in that way, in my opinion. I think Kansas State wins, but it's going to be closer than what people want it to be. I kind of said that throughout the show. I have it 21-14.
Yeah. I have K-State 66-0. So
that seems about right. Yeah,
like the Missouri game in 1999.
You sound like some of those KU podcasts. I'm going
to bet the alternate line. I'm betting the alternate line at plus 2 million, money line at 66 points for K-State spread. No, I'll take K-State, and what I do think, K-State's average margin of victory 45-12 at home, and average margin at 33. I think this will be the closest game that K-State does play at home. UCF was right around there at 13. I think K-State will win this game. 20. Give me 31 to. Damn it, that's John's score. I was going to say.
Did you? I was going to say. I think Cole did nothing this week.
Okay, that's
he
bullshit.
doesn't even know what his prediction is.
That's something I just hadn't give thought to. I have 5 pages of notes on Iowa State that I pulled together while watching the Maui Invitational last night, guys. So, all right, I did prep on Iowa State, but I didn't think about my bet. I didn't think about my prediction on the actual score. So,
which is hilarious because the first part of the show, the very first thing we did, Kurtz asked, "Is Cole dialed in?"
Yeah.
The answer, people, is no. An hour into it, we now clearly know the answer is no.
I will take K-State 32-21. I'm at a Price is Right, John, on both on the points, and I don't know how we're gonna get to 32, but you watch. If it hits 32, feel good. By the way, check out the tailgate with Holiday Distillery in spot 778 on the west side of the football stadium on Saturday. Be there around 4:00. We'll be there, and come have a drink with us. Some Ben Holiday bottled in Bond bourbon.
Well, we'll see. Cole will be there.
Oh, I forgot. John is soft as a pillow, so he may not be there because he. What?
Is it too cold?
Yeah, it's too cold for John.
A lot of stuff going on. Okay. A lot of stuff going on. Into a house, I haven't had any time to unpack anything, man. And I'm already going to be in Manhattan on Friday. Like, I'm going to be out of town on Friday. So anyway.
All right. Sorry. All right. I thought it was only dictated by the cold. I didn't know you had other things going on too. So, I mean, the group text between
just moving into my first house. Like, come on, man.
Yeah. Well, anyways, I'll be there. Yeah. So
I just didn't want any false advertising. Okay.
Curry Sexton will be there too. So he's coming by. Yeah. So actually better. I mean, Curry and me versus John. So
and that's a good. I wouldn't argue that. I wouldn't argue that at all. He's much smarter than me. Okay. Thanks to our friends at Holiday Distillery, not only for the tailgate, but they give you that 360 vodka, the Ben Holiday bottled in bond bourbon. Class up a Clone fan. Wear your holiday, your home field apparel, rather. Black Friday sale. Promo code Black Friday, 20% off. Homefieldapparel.com. Get out there. And if you're going to bet, do it on DraftKings, everybody. If you're going to take the Cole Manbeck parlay of K-State minus 65 and TCU money line, make sure that you do it on DraftKings. I appreciate Nick Springer behind the scenes. Thanks to Derek Young and Cole Manbeck as always. I am John Kurtz. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.